Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to rethink the very architecture of your own mind. You know, if you spend any time reading up on psychology or cognitive science, you've probably hit that massive, slightly depressing list of cognitive flaws. We're all walking around with brains totally hardwired for irrational biases, logical fallacies, and blind spots. It feels like a massive disadvantage, right? Like you're constantly fighting this uphill battle against your own innate programming. But what if those exact flaws were actually the secret weapons you needed to become incredibly rational? Today, we're setting the stage for a total paradigm shift in how we view our cognitive quirks. We're going to look at how to stop fighting your brain and start hacking it instead.
Okay, let's dive into this. Our guiding philosophy today is pretty simple. Know the brain you have to get the brain you want. Now, it's incredibly easy to feel defeated when you realize just how heavily influenced you are by unconscious biases. It's honestly a bit depressing to acknowledge that we aren't the perfectly logical, objective creatures we like to imagine we are. But this quote holds the key to a really empowering secret. Acknowledging the actual flawed brain you have, that's just step one. Step two is using that exact architecture to build the mind you actually desire. It's a massive shift in perspective.
So what does this all mean? It brings us right to the core thesis of this explainer. Biases aren't just flaws. They're actually tools to de-bias yourself. Instead of constantly fighting a losing battle against our deep-seated psychological mechanisms, we can actively hijack them. We can take the very same irrational tendencies that usually lead us astray and use them to build better, more objective, and highly rational habits. Basically, we're going to take the bug and turn it into a feature.
All right, moving to section 1, the consistency effect, hacking our need for identity.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept is the commitment and consistency effect. This is a very well-documented phenomenon. Think about a time you were asked to sign a petition on the street, or maybe you just absent-mindedly liked a product on social media or quickly wrote a testimonial. Statistically speaking, once you take that action, you're significantly more likely to genuinely support that cause or product in the future. Why does that happen? Because you literally construct your self-identity based on the memory of things you said and done. Even if you were just going through the motions at the time, your brain looks back and goes, well, I supported that then, so I must be the type of person who believes in this now. Your past actions actively construct your future identity.
So how do we actually use this to our advantage? Well, it requires a psychological judo flip. In martial arts, judo is all about taking your opponent's momentum and using it against them, right? We can do the exact same thing with our brain. We have the irrational default, which is blindly supporting a cause just to stay consistent with a past thoughtless action. Not very helpful. But then there's the rational hack. If our brain desperately wants to be consistent with what we endorse, then we should actively and deliberately endorse objectivity. We can purposefully take actions that force our brain to adopt rationality as its core identity.
So the crucial point is how we actually put this into practice. Here are 3 super actionable steps. First, start praising other people when they change their minds in response to evidence. Second, loudly and publicly say that you admire objectivity and empiricism. Literally tell a friend, hey, I really respect when people look at the data. Third, write it down. Keep a private journal where you explicitly commit to considering other hypotheses. By doing these things, even if you're just kind of forcing yourself at first, you are physically tricking your future self. Your brain is going to observe you praising rationality, and it'll unconsciously shift your identity to match, pushing you to act more rationally in the future simply to remain consistent. It's wild.
Section 2. Power of Social Proof. The Primate Tribe.
Look, we just have to face facts here. Deep down, we are social primates, and because of that, we desperately want to belong. This means we're highly susceptible to social proof, which is our innate inclination to believe and value whatever the human beings around us believe. Usually we view this as a major negative when we're talking about logic, because conforming to your tribe can unfortunately and very easily lead you entirely away from the objective truth. But let's apply our judo flip to this bias as well. The irrational default is exactly what we just talked about. Adopting the beliefs of the crowd simply to fit in, totally regardless of the evidence. It's just mere peer pressure. But the rational hack completely changes the game. If you know for a fact that you're a social primate who will inevitably conform to the people around you, then the hack is to intensely curate your community. You want to set up an environment where the crowd naturally peer pressures you into rationality. You use the momentum of conformity against itself by simply choosing the right tribe. And this brilliantly illustrates how you can execute this hack. It's actually incredibly straightforward. You need to actively plug yourself into groups of people who highly value the principles of rationality. Look for communities that celebrate someone changing their mind based on new evidence, rather than punishing them for being inconsistent. Seek out spaces that appreciate nuanced, complex points of view instead of just rigid black and white thinking. And the absolute beauty of the modern world is that you can engage with these groups either in person or entirely online. By simply immersing yourself in a community that values empiricism, your primate brain's desire to conform will effortlessly rewire your behavior to become more rational.
All right, bringing us to Section 3, the shampoo epiphany, an unlikely guru.
We've spent this whole explainer dissecting this incredibly profound, highly effective cognitive philosophy. Know the brain you have to get the brain you want. It sounds like it should be the title of a peer-reviewed paper in some prestigious neuroscience journal, or maybe a quote translated from an ancient Stoic philosopher, right? Well, I want you to take a quick guess. Where do you think the core inspiration for this profound insight actually comes from? Let's move on and see how this builds. Yes, you are seeing that correctly. It comes from a Pantene Pro V shampoo bottle. No joke, the original quote was literally, "Know the hair you have to get the hair you want." It was just paraphrased a tiny bit by the source material to uncover this absolutely incredible cognitive insight. It really goes to show that brilliant frameworks for understanding ourselves can come from the most hilariously mundane places. So, as we wrap up today, I'm going to leave you with this question. Are you ready to hijack your own brain to build the mind you want? Those biases we all walk around with, they aren't chains, they are levers. By deliberately using the consistency effect and carefully curating your social proof, you can literally trick yourself into greatness. Start curating your tribe, publicly praise rationality, and stop fighting your instincts. I mean, if a shampoo bottle can figure out the secret to human cognition, just imagine what you can do. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and get out there and start hacking your mind today.